Hey everyone, this is Dr. Thaddeus Gala with a very special guest today. You probably recognize, or maybe this is your first time listening to the show. This is my mom. So Mom, it's great to have you today.
It's wonderful to be here. Hello.
And as you can see, well, if you're watching this, or if you're just listening to the audio, of course, this may not make as much sense. But if you're watching the video, we're here with a beautiful, beautiful backdrop. We are at in Southern Oregon, at a place called Union Creek near Natural Bridge, where the entire Rogue River actually disappears underwater through a lava tube, and not too far from Crater Lake, where a lot of the springs come out for the headwaters of the Rogue River. So if you want to Google something absolutely beautiful, one of the wonders of the world, you can look up Crater Lake. I believe it's the deepest lake in the United States and the ninth deepest in the world, where a mountain essentially erupted, Mount Mazama, thousands of years ago, and it formed a crater. And now I think just the rim of the lake is around 8,000 feet. So a beautiful, beautiful backdrop. And I think this speaks to the topic I want to review with you today, Mom, and that is that, well, first off, a little bit of background, and that is that you, obviously you have a long history of being a teacher, as well as being a teacher of teachers. So you have your master's in supervision, is that correct?
That's correct.
So master's in supervision. So when at the height of your career, you were teaching teachers how to teach. You have worked with numerous school districts, numerous principals and organizations. You consistently had one of the highest test scores in your district, and you're sought after for consulting. And now you work, obviously I get the luxury of working with you with some of our top clients that want to get off medications, lose weight, reverse chronic illnesses. Obviously you've had your own experience with reversing fibromyalgia. You're on full disability, and now you're a lead health coach, and running and winning 5K races and on no medications and in complete remission. So your story is amazing. Plus how you're able to deliver that, I think is absolutely amazing. So the topic that I want to get into today, and I think speaks for just even the beauty and the elegance of where we're at, is the idea of like one of my coaches, Dan Sullivan, talks about is wisdom versus data. In that data is something that we all need, of course, versus wisdom is more timeless, from the sense of, even from a health perspective, of data could be an example of, I woke up this morning and I counted my calories, or I counted my weight, and obviously that's more of a commodity. It can be short-lived. Data can change every day, versus wisdom is timeless and never changes. And I think the people that really succeed are able to see the blend of both. But I'd love to get your perspective in terms of, because obviously you have an amazing amount of history, and I believe an amazing amount of wisdom. I'd love to hear some of the things that you think that over your years that you found, both in students of health, students in the classroom, and students that you were teachers of all different people that you've taught. What do you find as some of the most successful criteria that those people have that makes people succeed?
Belief in self, a sense of confidence, a sense that if I set my mind to it, and if I figure out the how, I can achieve the what. If I just a belief in yourself that I really can do this, and I may need a coach, I may need answers to a lot of questions, but if I persevere and I keep at it, I can achieve the goals, whatever that is. If it's anything from a college education to a certain amount of money into a bank account, or want to lose weight, or it's just that belief that I can do it. There's a way for me to achieve that.
Well, and you were, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you were in school, that you weren't necessarily the best student, or school didn't come easy for you, or even like math, you struggled with that. How did that? And I've heard you say this before, but I'd love to hear, how did that create not only a compassion, but also a unique perspective of the people that you work with today in terms of overcoming their health issues, reversing whether it's diabetes or fibromyalgia, or even working with our Parkinson patients or our Alzheimer's patients. How did that compassion, I guess, and understanding and patience turn over to the way that you help coach people today?
Wow, that's a big question, because I think I could write a book on just that. Could be like a topic of a book to write. There's so much information on that. I think that for me, it was, you're right. Thinking back, like even grade school, kindergarten. My memories start back at kindergarten, and I used to run away at kindergarten. I didn't like it because I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, Green Hills, Ohio, outside of Cincinnati, surrounded by woods. And so at 3 and 4 years old, and, I was able to go out and play, in the 50s, it was okay to go out and play in the woods, unprotected, and you then walk home. And so I lived in the woods. And so when kindergarten came, all of a sudden I was pulled from that structure or not the structure, the lack of structure, to living in the woods, to playing in the woods and all those fantasies. And now I was stuck in a classroom, and I hated it. And I ran away. I ran away every recess, and I'd go back to the woods. And finally, my parents took me out of school. But first grade was different. And I just remember it being so different from what my life was like when life was fun and enjoyable and free and looked forward to it, that school wasn't like that for me. And I felt that way pretty much going through school all the way through. I got tracked in high school as secretarial. So the classes were kind of boring, and they were typing, which I never really excelled at. And because I always wanted to be a teacher. I knew very, very early on, almost around kindergarten, first grade, I wanted to be a teacher because I was going to make it fun. I was going to make school fun. And it ended up that, I became a teacher. And math, you talked about, yes, math was a struggle. Even getting my master's, I had to have tutors for statistics, somebody to help me get through it, because I, literally meet with them twice a week so that I could, pass that course, which was a requirement. And so I found that what this did for me, just that experience, for example, as a teacher, is I wanted to make it fun. So when kids came to school, they looked forward to it. It was individualized. It wasn't everybody on the same page. It was like, I didn't want you bored because we're going too slow for you, and I didn't want you feeling just so insecure because you're the only one who couldn't get it. So I individualized, and made it. And the same with math, because that was a struggle for me. Kids who were having a tough time with it, I was able to let them know that I had all the time to spend with them that would take. Eventually they would get it. It would just take them maybe a little longer, but they could get it.
So because some people obviously love that structure and the organization of school and the traditional model, and other people don't. Other people don't do well at school, but they go on to live very successful, by our standards, of society. They live very successful lives. They're very successful with their business owners, or in relationships, or as a partner, or as an employee. I'd love to see, how that, because, when we're talking about wisdom, it's not just what should you learn and how to integrate it. It's also just the concept of learning. So I'd love to even hear kind of, what do you find is the skill set of people that are the lifelong learners, that are able to take information and not feel overwhelmed, and to be able to implement that in their life to see real lasting changes, whether it's reversing diabetes, reversing Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, PMR, all these other chronic illnesses, and obviously these cases that we work with on a daily basis, and you being in the trenches and really coaching the people, what do you find in terms of those people that are able to, I guess, kind of those lifelong learners, and what do you think are those skill sets or the mindset that's needed for people to be able to be appropriate learners?
Well, there's a term in teaching that's called task analysis. And that term is that whatever task you want to share with your students, whatever it is you want to teach them, you take the task and you analyze it. Task analysis means you take that task and you break it down into steps. First, second, third, you break it down. And I find that serves me very well in a remodel I'm doing right now. Break it down into chunks and get one chunk done, then the second chunk. And certainly, as I've helped as a health coach, I've helped people learn, and I've taken that term task analysis and broken it down into baby steps. That you think about what is going to give me the biggest bang for my buck, and what do I want to do first, and break it down into baby steps. And if you look at all of it, let me back up. I'm remembering I wanted to be a teacher. And keep in mind that I graduated from high school. I barely graduated. I had a GPA that wouldn't get me into any state college, but I managed to graduate. So I was going to a junior college. And I was overwhelmed when I saw all the classes. It was a 5-year course in college, and I had never written a term paper, and all the things I was going to have to do from entering that first year at a junior college to graduate with a teaching, credential. And I remember my mom, who didn't have behind a high school education, but had tons of wisdom. And I remember going to her saying, Mom, I think I'm going to be a hairdresser because I really don't think I could ever be a teacher. She said, Melanie, you want to be a teacher? I said, yeah, but Mom, it's too much. Look at this syllabus. Look at what I have to do here, Mom. I've never even written a term paper. And I remember her sitting with me and saying, and really sharing with me, you're not doing all of this right now. You're not doing every bit of this today. Right. This is 5 years. So all we're going to do now is let's just break it down. Show me what has to, and here again is a woman who had never been to college. So let's just break it down. Show me what has to happen this first semester. I go, well, I have to do this and this. And she'd go, okay, let's take one less. And again, here's my mom. She was the best counselor ever. She said, all right, you need to take, and I can't remember, let's say it's 5 classes. And let's just do 4. Because you can go to summer school and take up the other one. So let's take it easy since you're just learning this. You're going to need tutors for some of this. And it was like, okay. She got me to focus on that. And 5 years later, I had a teaching credential. And I did just what she said. I took smaller chunks. I went to summer school. Then after a while, I was able to take the full load. But again, as I could handle it. And I find that that's what our health coaches, myself included, what we do when we're helping people make changes and achieve their health goals and improvement in their health, is to break it down into chunks, little pieces. We're not doing all of it today. Everything we talk about doesn't happen in the first week. The same happened with my fibromyalgia in my 40s when it was a huge slam dunk, and it happened over a matter of months. I was fully disabled. My health was just taken from me. And I was told that, I wouldn't be given, I would never be working full time again. And such. And I just started again with baby steps, got a physical therapist, got a chiropractor, went to different people to help me, and just baby steps, one step at a time to where, and of course, you coming along was huge in terms of an anti-inflammatory diet and me being willing to take that on. But even that, I had to do baby steps. And to be able to now fast forward to have put my fibromyalgia in full remission. And I find that those are the clients that really do well, are the ones that just say, baby steps. What am I going to do this week? And then next week, and keep and see it mount up.
So how do you work with people, or what's the mindset that you see? Because I know a lot of people they look at life as a sprint when it's really a marathon. And, I heard the thing, I think it was Cameron Harold. I was listening to some of his information today. I thought was great. He said, when you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're dead. And I think that it's so much part of the process. And a lot of people get frustrated in the process. They say, I've had people that have come in. I'm looking at their labs, at the results of them. I say, oh my gosh, you've lost 20 pounds. You're off of all, half your medications. Your blood pressure is down. Your cholesterol is normal. It's this glowing review. And I look at them and I'm thinking, well, why aren't you excited? And they think, yeah, well, I still have another 10 pounds to go. Mm-hmm. And they lose sight of that. So what do you find in terms of the I guess kind of, if we were to do a dichotomy, what do you find what would you say would be like kind of the top 3 mindsets that you see winners have versus the top 3 mindsets that people that struggle or don't succeed have? And what would you say would be that dichotomy? And what would you offer as people to try to make that shift, obviously, so they can be more in that success category mindset wise?
Well, if I'm going to think of 3, the first thing that comes to my mind is, again, a roadmap. A roadmap is really helpful. This is what I want to achieve, and having the steps laid out. Otherwise, it can be overwhelming. So let's just even take the concept of wanting to lose weight. And, somebody who says, I want to lose 50 pounds, and that can be overwhelming. And so it's about, 5 pounds a month. I mean, to me, it's not like a timeline. It's like, let's just make progress. If we can make progress towards that. And again, I go into having a coach is so helpful. You can read a book, but to have somebody in your corner that helps support that. So I think having a roadmap where you know how you're going to go about, this is what I want to achieve. How do I go about doing it? And then that becomes broken down to so many steps. Like one of the things for someone who wants to lose weight, I recommend is keeping a nutrition log. It's knowing what kinds of foods to eat and what kind to avoid. So you're not just losing weight, you're reducing inflammation at the same time. Lots of ways to lose weight. I always encourage, as you do, I know we are really emphasize lots of ways to lose weight, but let's reduce inflammation and lose weight at the same time. So it's having that roadmap of how to accomplish that. laid out for you. And then I think, so like I said, nutrition log, other kind of logs you might keep. I think another thing then is to really think about surrounding yourself with friends and families that are going to support you. That's a huge mindset because, again, I've got my roadmap and I know what I'm going to do. Now I want people in my corner that are going to support me as opposed to, you don't need to lose weight, you're just fine, says my spouse who doesn't want to work on losing weight or however that works. So those people are there to support me. And then I think the third step is to be mindset is you're very kind to yourself. You celebrate your accomplishments, that it's not about what you haven't done, it becomes about what you have done. And that's where things like gratitude journals, where you're writing down your accomplishments, that you really focus on those. I think those would be three huge mindsets. You can't go it alone. You want to have support. And you want to take action steps towards keeping a positive attitude throughout.
Well, I think what you hit on kind of reminds me of the quote escapes me at this time, but I think it was by Eleanor Roosevelt, and it kind of reminds me of like there's three different levels, and probably even more of that in terms of like the baseline level is thinking about like the daily tasks of I need to do X, Y, Z today. Versus the middle task is you're kind of thinking about how to plan that out. So I guess kind of the lower task is I need to, let's just say like cooking, for instance. So I need to do this. I need to do this cooking today. So what's my shopping list? And the level just above that would be kind of the mid-level of awareness is kind of planning out like the week and so forth. And then the level above that is really the appreciation of why are you eating and how does that relate to health and how does that bring you to, I guess, kind of your higher optimization of your body. Now, obviously that concept can go over all things, but I think of the bottom level being kind of just looking at data or the actual crunching of the data, and the one above that being, I guess, kind of more analyzing and more aware of the data, and then the one above that is more like thinking about your thinking. So you have your thinking about your thinking, then you have your thinking, and then you have your actual taking action. And I think that the higher level that you can get in there, the more that I find that the clients that we work with, the people that succeed, that the higher they realize, the higher that they're able to put their brain and appreciate that, the higher the chance that they'll succeed. Because the more that you can kind of like look kind of down on yourself and kind of get the picture of yourself of what you're doing and almost kind of remove yourself from the day-to-day stuff you're having to deal with, that is what I found is typically people that have the greatest success. Because when you're down in the trenches and you're looking at the scale every day, just for instance, or if you're looking at your blood pressure every day, or if you're feeling like, God, I have low energy, or I'm not getting sleep, or whatever your health issue is, or maybe it's a relationship issue, or business, or whatever it is, that if you get stuck in the details all day long, you can kill yourself and go nuts over it. But obviously you need to have that in your barometer, see which way you're going, whether it's learning something or a new task or a goal. So you need to have that yardstick, but also then you need to be able to take time to step back and think about the process, but then also even taking another step back and thinking about how you think about those processes. And I'd love for you to even touch on that in terms of what do you find from the people that you find that struggle, that don't make strides, excuse me, in their health or business or whatever it is of people that you're working with. What do you find with the people that struggle? How do you find that you're able to help people get out of that mindset of that loop thinking of they get stuck just looking at the data and they're not even able to get to that second or third level of awareness or even higher than that?
I think that, well, let me give an example of something that I have found that happens frequently with clients. And one of the things that when you're first starting off and you take chunks is that, and you begin the process, usually what is supportive and helps you in the struggles is you begin to experience some success. The fact that you lose 5 pounds is pretty exciting. Your fasting blood sugar levels, if that's your issue, they're starting to go down. You've just been able to cut down some insulin or cut down your metformin a little bit. And it's like, wow. So that right in itself just encourages you to keep on going. But then there might be that plateau. And then there's that things kind of stop. And that's where then people will come to me, clients will come to me or other health coaches in a panic. And it's like, there needs to be that mindset that says, I know I'm doing the right thing. I know that I am on the right path. There has to be that real belief in what you're
Right,
doing,
right.
that it's not always going to happen as quickly as we want. I want to give a personal example because this is something that comes up frequently a lot with clients, I have found. So I'll think about one gentleman just recently. He came into our program because he wanted to get rid of his fibromyalgia. A lot of chronic pain running throughout his body. Also losing weight and different, side things would be good. Sleeping better, more energy. Well, as he got into the program, 4 months into the program, he had more energy. He had lost even more weight than he thought he would lose, and he was thrilled about that. And he was sleeping better. So those parts of his goals were great, but he still had a certain amount of aching and pain from his fibromyalgia. His fibromyalgia wasn't put in complete remission. And at his graduation, so to speak, at the end of his 4-month period where he was then going to be ongoing and continuing with our group calls and so forth, by no means ending, but it was kind of a 4-month check-in. He shared, rather than have this real excitement about all the things that he had achieved, he was focusing much more on the fact that, but my fibromyalgia isn't in remission yet. Why is that? Why have I achieved these things, but my fibromyalgia is not in remission?
Right.
And I thought, boy, that mindset is going to trip him up. It's going to, well, first of all, it's robbing him of a quality of life because
Right.
of the excitement of what he has achieved. So it was about working with him and wanting to share. In fact, I ended up sending him an email where I wanted to talk to him, kind of at length about, with my own self. 30 days into it, for me, I started having a little bit more energy. About 2 months into it, maybe 3 months, I noticed I had less migraine headaches. And maybe in about 4 months, I could say, I think I have a little bit less pain, but I still had arthritis in my hands. That if I went outside, I was still difficult to write. If I went outside and tried to do much gardening, my hands would just cramp up and they were just very, very painful. So I remember going then to a surgeon of the hand because I thought, well, my fibromyalgia has been a lot better and I have more energy and less migraine headaches. A lot's happened since I've switched to this diet and so forth. So I'm excited, but I was really still focusing more on my hands, the pain in my hands. So I went to a surgeon of the hand. And the surgeon, of course, suggested 3 different surgeries he wanted me to have over the course of that year. 3, one in one hand and 2 in the other. And he told me if I didn't have those surgeries done, my hands, by the time I'm in my 70s, would be crippled up. And he said, that is what I'm going to predict for you. And here I was in my 50s. So he's saying, 20 years from now, so we really should do these surgeries. I remember you went with me to that appointment. And I remember you saying to, the surgeon knew you as my son. And you said, well, doctor, may I just ask you a question? And you said, would you accept or would you, agree with me that doing less invasive first is always better than these surgeries? Because one surgery he talked about was going to be, I'd have to have rehab to learn how to reuse my thumb. Well, that sounds pretty intense. That's pretty scary to learn how to reuse my thumb. And which, so he said, well, yes, absolutely. And he said, so kind of who are you? And you said, well, I'm a doctor of chiropractic. And he said, okay, well, you think you could offer something? He said, well, my mom wanted your opinion for sure, but I'm going to suggest that she continue with this anti-inflammatory diet, very strict, that she really adhere to it, and that she also come in and have some intense chiropractic treatments like 3 times a week for, weeks and maybe months. And he says, well, and he wasn't real, again, he's a surgeon, so he believes in surgery. That's who we were talking to, was a surgeon. He's going to give us surgery as our option. But he did. He said, well, yeah, certainly try that. Well, anyway, that's what we did. We left his office, and I started with you with the chiropractic and 3 times a week, but really strict with the diet. And, here I am, fast forward. I never had any surgeries, and on my hands I can write, I can do everything, and I'm 69, and I have no crippling arthritis. In fact, most people say arthritis is degenerative, and mine is like, it's like gone. And I'm thinking, and it's in remission. And I'm thinking, if I had, let's go back to that mindset. If I had, it's not quick enough. These other things have happened. This hasn't. I would have gone and had all those surgeries, and I hope I would have learned how to reuse my thumb. I don't know, but that's scary to me. So that's what I want to tell people is that that you're on the right path. You've seen these other things that you've gained. So keep that mindset that focuses on everybody's going to heal differently. Going to take a little bit longer, different amount of time, but you don't give up.
Well, I think there's two big beliefs that I just heard that when you were saying that. One is the belief that you need to surround yourself with new playmates and new playgrounds, and that you're the sum of the people that you most associate with. So I think it's the idea of surrounding yourself with those people of the mindset, and I think it comes down to that the idea that, you know, I had a similar story with another patient that came in, and she said, yeah, you know, Dr. Gala, I've you know, I had some arthritis in her shoulder. She's like, gosh, I just don't know what to do. I've been to three different doctors, or three different surgeons rather, and they all are recommending surgery on my shoulder. But she's like, but I don't want surgery. And I said, well, who have you talked to besides a surgeon? She's like, oh, well, I just talked to three different surgeons. And I realized that right there, you know, that's the lens that they look through. And obviously, I'm not saying all surgeons are like that, but I'm just drawing that as an example to say that, you know, whatever person, whatever lens they have, that's how they're going to view it. So I'd ask yourself is number one is the belief of the people that you're around. Are they like-minded? And because to me, that's a huge success criteria. If you're surrounding yourself with people that are offering solutions and approaches of people that either you don't respect, or you don't have the trust in, or the value in, or that you just disagree with your value system, that right there is, to me, is a glaring first step. Is you have to surround yourself and with people that are of the mindset of where you want to go. And that doesn't mean physically. You can be listening to, well, you can be watching this video, you can be listening to this audio, you can be, you know, obviously with the connectivity of online and social media, or obviously in person is great as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can engage with people and the mindset and the tribe of where you either want to go or where you want to be, and don't feel like you have to go the mainstream route or where everyone else is telling you. So I think to me, that's one of the big mindsets, is surrounding yourself with the belief that you can do that, and that's coupled with that, and trusting your gut. Mm-hmm. Trusting your gut. Mm-hmm. I think so many of us really, if we do a gut check, really a lot of us have the answer, and it's not that when we talk things out with people that necessarily the other person, you know, always offers this great feedback or mechanism, but a sounding board, I think, oftentimes is so great, because inside, if we really do a deep gut check, we probably already know the answer to some of our tough questions or what we really should be doing in different situations. But just by talking with someone, it forces us to lay it out in a logical sequence, so the person just doesn't think we're jumbled, because obviously when you're in your brain, you can jump from one idea to the next and leapfrog so fast. But when you're forced to explain it to someone, that right there makes your brain put it in a sequential order that oftentimes will help you arrive at the conclusion or the solution of what your action should be. So I think surrounding yourself provides that opportunity and to be able to discuss that. And the other thing that I think that you touched on, so the second thing that I think that was powerful, what I just got out of what you said was having the patience, because you're trusting in your mindset. You're trusting your mindset, and you're giving it the patience. You knew that, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be a better solution. So I'm going to take a step back. Let's think about my thinking, think about my approach, and let's kind of look down on all this and see what's going on, look at the pieces, and really trusting your gut and going with that. And obviously that served you well. Not that makes you invincible, but I think that affords you the opportunity to be able to take advantage of really the intrinsic knowledge that I think our bodies have. Because when you make a decision, you realize that a lot of us will make decisions, be like, I really don't know why, it was just my gut reaction or whatever I did, or responded in a situation or what I did. But people don't realize that that's a culmination of thousands and thousands of experiences that your body's had, that when you come up on something and you have a reflex or a reaction or a response, your body's essentially processed all of these things to be able to have a reflexive response to survive in a situation. And that's a survival mechanism. I mean, obviously, if you see something on the ground on a trail that looks like a snake, you have a reaction to that because it's a type of survival. And maybe it's just a stick and you reacted inappropriately to the stick, but you had all these previous conditionings that got you there. So I think it's taking that time to look at your conditioning and to take a step back and say, do I really need to act this way, or how do I want to act, and where do I want to be going with, again, whether it's your health or relationships or business or whatever goal that you're trying to accomplish. So So I'd love to hear, what do you see in terms of the transformation of people that feel stuck with any goal? What do you find is the transformation? What do you think is the turning point for people that feel stuck, that go to the mindset of being a lifelong learner and having the patience and having the mindset and the skill set of someone that wins? What do you find helps people go through that transition? Or is it more inherent, or both?
Well, I think, again, I go back to having a coach, and a coach can take a lot of forms. I think it's great if you have that one-on-one connection with someone, at least in the beginning, to help you keep track of that mindset. I think that is huge for people, that they'll say, when they've gone through like our program, we ask them at the end, we'll say, so what was the number one thing that you think was the most beneficial? And they'll say, it was my coach. It was my health coach that held me accountable, that kept me on track, that kept me from the loop thinking. And I feel now I've got a good start, and I know I can, that I'm on the right path, the right direction now, and I can continue on. So I think that's been huge for that. I think also it's the knowledge that you get along the way, because I like to consider it, it's sort of a health class 101 in yourself, so that you're getting all kinds of knowledge as it pertains to you and your life, that it's not just for getting rid of or achieving certain goals, getting rid of certain ailments you have, like getting off all your diabetic medications, which is a huge achievement and fabulous. But while you're doing that, you don't heal just one thing. You're also preventing your risk for heart disease and for, a stroke and so many other things, because once you've chosen an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, you reduce inflammation in your body that's a source for cancers and all of these things. So that's why I believe at 69, I found the fountain of youth. I mean, I'm not invincible, and I do acknowledge that, and that's why I keep on, and with the exercise and all of it. But I also know that I have reduced my risk for all of the things that most of us just consider a natural part of aging. So that, if I keep that as my mindset, that I wake up almost with that, a reaffirmation every day for that day to be the best day forward, because making today the absolute best that I can make it, thinking in terms of the rest of my days. So I think that's a mindset that it's like you embrace it every day.
Well, I think from there, I think you touched on one of the final thoughts I'd like to share, and that is essentially your brain has become your own coach.
Yes,
and I know that I've seen some research to suggest that people on their own have about a 20% success rate versus a coach, they have upwards of 80 to 90% success rate. And I know for me, the people that I have in my life, I have multiple coaches even right now, whether it's running, business, mastermind groups. I surround myself with people that I term my coaches, plus my own mind. I try to think of my own coach, because things in our lives can get so loud, whether you're trying to run a race and it's the pain, or whether it's trying to get healthy, because, and there's a vice, there's a food that you don't want. Or because every single day, whatever, anything that we do, we know that there's always something that we could have done better or do more of. Every single day, all of us, if you were to look back over the day, you could find some things that you think, oh, I could have done that better, or I could have been healthier, or I could have been smarter, or I could have done, or I could have been putting in the extra effort. And I think there's a Navy SEAL quote that says, someone was asking Navy SEALs, like, well, how do you guys become so successful at what you do, and how do you do that? And the response was, well, when you think you've given 100%, you've really only given maybe about 60%, so that you have another 40% to go. But obviously for a Navy SEAL, that pain can be so loud. So how do you work through that? And by the pain, I mean, that could be anything. That could be being addicted to certain foods that I shouldn't eat this, but you eat it anyways. Obviously that's a somewhat form of an addiction. But all these things that we do throughout the day that we make little justifications for. And I think, so I would say, the things I've heard out of this is recognizing that we don't have, no one has all the answers, and recognize to be a lifelong learner, and getting a coach. And I'm not saying this obviously just even for the work that we do, but because a coach can take many forms. It can be a friend, it can be a family, it can be, obviously hiring someone, but finding someone that you're accountable to, other than yourself. You can be, if you have that mindset, that's wonderful. But I think also finding someone or a group or something that you're accountable to. I believe that's how some of the greatest leaders and people throughout history have really achieved it, is they've had other people that they've looked up to, or other mentors that have helped them realize, because sometimes we get stuck in our own thinking, and that can be our own worst enemy. So it's taking a step out, finding, like, I love the example, like finding new playmates and new playgrounds, and of the people that you not only want to be like, but the people that you want to that you admire, and the type of person that you want to become. Always looking at learning and giving it time, and trusting in your gut. To me, those are some of the biggest things that I've got out of today.
Well, that's awesome. And I one thing that I loved your summary. And as you were summarizing, I thought, well, there's one thing that I do want to touch upon before we close, and that is inspirational reading. I just realized how huge that's been in my life, that I always have a book. I call it my self-help books, whether it's Essentialism, Arianna Huffington's Thrive, if it's Younger Next Year, one of my favorite books. And some of these books are so good that I might read them through and then start reading them over again. And I might just read 10 minutes a day. Just a little bit that just gives me a little bit of a mindset, for that day. You quote like Eleanor Roosevelt, people like that, Navy SEALs. I mean, there's so many things like that can be an inspiration that just help me stay on track, that other people have done this, I can do this. And just tips as I go along that I feel I get that support. So inspirational reading, I'd stick into that as well.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's great. Anything else? I love the information. Anything else that you'd want to add at this point, or recommendations or advice for people?
I think that I would, I guess in closing, or maybe a summary, I would want to say, celebrate your accomplishments and don't beat yourself up for the time that it takes to achieve them. We all want everything yesterday. It's going to take the time it takes. Just keep oning. Baby steps are good. And tracking some of that so you can look back and you can see your progress. And like, oh my gosh, this is where I was and this is where I am now. And just celebrate.
Right. Progress, not perfection. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Exactly.
So I think it's wonderful. Of course, if people have, if you want more information, whether you're watching this video or the audio, or maybe you're reading the transcript, you can go to drthadgala.com for more free resources and information. And hopefully you found this interesting. Of course, this was a wonderful, beautiful setting. We actually did our polar bear swim this morning. I'm not sure the temperature, but I think the temperature was maybe around 54 or 56 degrees, but it was very cold this morning, but it woke us up. And it's just been awesome. It's been a great couple days spent up here in nature, beautiful, wonderful setting. And hopefully you learned some information, got maybe some motivation or inspiration, and it's helped you in some way. And if you know of someone that you think might be interested or get benefit out of watching or reading or hearing this, feel free, of course, to share this with them, or you can direct them again to drthadgala.com. That's drthadgala.com. And I'm with my wonderful, loving mother, teacher, mentor, inspire, and my coach in many ways. So this has been great being with you here today, Mom. So again, I'm Dr. Gala, and here's to making the rest of your years the best of your years. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.